The cold morning air carried the familiar scent of polished leather and wool, the atmosphere around Horse Guards Parade thick with tradition. The annual St. Patrick's Day Parade was a fixture in the royal calendar, a day when the monarchy publicly honored the Irish Guards with the presentation of the shamrock. For the thousands of spectators pressed against the barriers, it was a spectacle of precision and pageantry. For the men standing in the ranks, it was a test of endurance, a performance where stillness was mandatory and human weakness was a secret to be guarded at all costs. Among the flawless rows of red tunics and bearskins stood a guardsman we will call Liam. To the crowd, he was indistinguishable from his comrades, just another young man with a polished brass buckle and a gaze fixed firmly ahead. But inside, beneath the thick wool, his world was tilting on its axis. He had been standing at attention for over an hour, the ceremonial uniform acting as a furnace in the morning sun. He could feel the familiar, dreaded prickle of heat at the base of his spine, the way the ground beneath his feet seemed to sway like the deck of a ship. He blinked hard, trying to focus on the back of the officer's head in front of him, trying to anchor himself to something real. He thought of his mother, who was somewhere in the crowd, her camera raised, bursting with pride. He could not fall. He would not fall. He repeated this mantra as the dark spots began to dance at the edges of his vision, unaware that his body was about to make the decision for him. The sound of the bagpipes was a wall of noise, vibrating through the cobblestones and up through the soles of his boots. Liam's breathing grew shallow, his chest tight inside the confines of his tunic. He tried the old trick, flexing his toes and calves, forcing the blood to move. But the dehydration from the previous night's nerves and the early morning start had left his system with nothing left to give. The world began to mute, the skirl of the pipes fading to a distant hum. The last thing he saw was the figure of the Princess of Wales, a vision of green and cream, moving gracefully along the line of guardsmen, offering sprigs of shamrock to the officers. She was getting closer, a blur of smiling acknowledgement. He tried to take one more breath, to hold on for just a few more seconds, but his body had reached its limit. The ground rushed up to meet him in sudden collapse, the first ripple of chaos in a sea of perfect order. For a moment, time seemed to fracture. 1 second, there was a wall of guardsmen. The next, there was a gap. The crowd gasped, a collective intake of breath that was almost loud enough to drown out the pipes, which faltered and died. Liam lay crumpled on the cobblestones, his magnificent uniform now a pile of discarded cloth. The officers closest to him reacted instantly, breaking rank to shield him from the view of the public and the cameras. It was a moment of profound vulnerability, not just for the young man on the ground, but for the institution itself. In that instant, he was not a soldier, but a human being in distress. And it was in this moment of chaos that the Princess of Wales stepped forward. While protocol dictated she remain at a safe distance, but her instincts dictated otherwise. She moved toward the fallen man, her face etched with genuine concern, a stark contrast to the rehearsed smiles of the parade. She bent slightly, as if to check on him, her gloved hand half extended, a silent gesture of compassion that cut through the military formality. It was a fleeting human moment, captured in 1,000 candid photographs, before the medics swarmed in and the machinery of the event swept Liam away, leaving the parade to reassemble and continue as if nothing had happened. Liam woke to the smell of antiseptic and the low murmur of voices. He was in the medical room at Wellington Barracks, stripped of his tunic, a cold compress pressed to his forehead. The shame hit him before the memory of the fall. He had collapsed, on parade, in front of the princess. And he had broken the first and most important rule of the guardsmen: thou shalt not move, thou shalt not faint, thou shalt not fail. The regimental medic assured him it was heat exhaustion, that it happened to the best of them, that he would be fine. But the medic's kind words did little to soothe the sting of failure. Liam stared at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over, imagining the disappointment of his superiors, the pity of his comrades, and the fear he must have put into his mother's heart. He felt hollowed out, not just physically, but emotionally. He had trained for years for this, for the precision, the discipline, the unbreakable facade. And in one silent moment, he had shattered it all. He asked the medic, his voice rough, if the princess had been all right. The medic just nodded, a strange look on his face. "She was more worried about you than the parade, lad." The days following the parade were some of the hardest of Liam's life. He expected a dressing down, a formal reprimand, perhaps even a removal from public duties. Instead, he was met with an unexpected silence. His immediate superiors checked on his physical health, ensured he was fit for duty, and then said nothing more about the incident. It was as if it had never happened. This was the Army's way of dealing with it, a quiet, dignified reset. But the silence was its own form of torture. Liam felt like a ghost in the barracks, the whispers stopping whenever he entered a room. He saw the look in the other guardsmen's eyes. It wasn't scorn, but a kind of uncomfortable awareness. He was a reminder that the machine was made of flesh and blood, that the bearskin could fall. He threw himself into training, running harder, drilling longer, trying to rebuild his own confidence. But a seed of doubt had been planted. Every time he stood on parade after that, the heat felt hotter. The ground felt less stable. He was fighting a battle now, not just against the elements, but against the memory of his own failure. A week after the incident, a letter arrived for him, the envelope bearing the royal cipher. With trembling hands, he opened it to find a handwritten note on thick, cream-colored paper. It was from the princess's private secretary, conveying a message from Her Royal Highness herself. It did not mention the parade or the collapse. Instead, it said that she hoped he was feeling better and that she admired the dedication and service of all the guardsmen, knowing that their duty often required great personal sacrifice. It was brief, formal, yet imbued with a warmth that cut through the official language. Liam read it 3 times, the shame slowly ebbing away, replaced by a profound sense of validation. She had seen him, not as a uniform, not as a failure, but as a person. That small piece of paper became a talisman for him, a reminder that compassion could exist even within the rigid structures of duty and protocol. Months passed. The incident faded from the news, replaced by other royal stories. But for Liam, the experience became a turning point. He carried the memory of that fall, not as a burden, but as a strange sort of strength. He had faced his lowest moment in the most public way imaginable, and he had survived. The compassion shown to him by the princess fostered a deeper loyalty within him, a personal understanding of the figures he was sworn to protect. He learned to manage the stress of the parades, to listen to his body, and to find a stillness within himself that wasn't just about outward appearance. He realized that true strength wasn't about being infallible. It was about getting back up. Years later, now a senior non-commissioned officer, Liam found himself on the same parade ground on another St. Patrick's Day. He stood a little straighter now, with the weight of experience rather than just expectation. He watched the young guardsmen, their faces pale with concentration, their eyes fixed. He saw one of them sway, just slightly, the heat and the weight taking their toll. In the old days, he might have just noted it, and a minor infraction to be corrected later. But now he caught the young man's eye and gave him the smallest, almost imperceptible nod. A nod of understanding, of solidarity. Steady, lad. He saw the young guardsman blink, refocus, and find his balance. As the princess, older now, her own life touched by public scrutiny and private battles, moved along the ranks, she paused briefly in front of Liam. Their eyes met for a fraction of a second. No words were exchanged, none were needed. In that silent glance, there was a shared memory of a moment years ago, a moment of collapse and a gesture of kindness. It was a secret history, known only to them, a small, heartfelt tale woven into the grand tapestry of ceremony. The pipes struck up, the crowd cheered, and the parade moved on, perfect and unbroken. But behind the polished buttons and the stoic faces, there beat a human heart, still standing, still serving, forever marked by the day it fell and was lifted up again by a simple act of grace.